Now I got to find my notes. Okay, everybody, I call this meeting of the Rotary Club of Oakland to order. I am Dudley Thompson, and I have the honor to serve as the president of the Rotary Club of Oakland. We were founded in 1908, and we were the third established Rotary Club of some 37,000 clubs in over 1.2 million members in over 200 countries around the world. We're a diverse community of some 300 local business, professional, and community leaders who unite to improve local and international communities through a common commitment of service above self. For over 113 years, we've welcomed Rotarians and their guests to our club meetings, and I welcome you to this, our 5,379th meeting. For those of you online, if you're a visiting Rotarian or the guest of a Rotarian, please enter your name in the chat box located in the center of the bottom of the screen so that we can recognize you in a few minutes. And if you have comments you want to ask or a question of the speaker today, please use the chat box. We recommend that you view today's meeting using speaker view located in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. For those of you in the California ballroom, I ask that you do not use your electronic device during the meeting to watch Zoom or to connect to the ballroom Wi-Fi. For the near future, our club protocol is that you wear a mask inside if you are not eating or drinking. We're still trying to make this space as safe as possible for our members and guests while still having a great meeting. I also ask that you refrain from talking, AV team. I ask that you refrain from talking during the meeting as the sound becomes background noise on our online broadcast. Liz Ortega, are you out there somewhere?
I'm on the screen.
There we go. Online, can we highlight Liz? There I saw you there for a moment. Just a moment, Liz. There we go. Almost. There we go, Liz. Welcome. Nice to see you. Would you give us a thought for the day?
Yes, good afternoon, Rotarians. So excited to be here today. I apologize for not being in person. So my thought of the day was to celebrate women. So every March, we have an opportunity to honor the generations of trailblazing women and girls in our lives who, despite hardships and exclusions and discrimination, have always stood up to fight for equity and equality. Unfortunately, despite our progress, many women and girls, specifically women of color, still face many systemic barriers. COVID-19 has exposed those challenges as well as continued attacks on our reproductive system and healthcare. So as we celebrate the many women in our lives throughout the month of March, I also want us to recommit ourselves to keep fighting for these women and the future of women everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. Gabe, you have the vision statement there somewhere. There we go. Would you please join me in the Rotary vision statement? Together, we see a world where people unite to create lasting change across the globe in our communities and in ourselves. I guess I should put my glasses on if I'm going to read up there. Okay. Past District Governor and past President Ed Jellen. Do we have any visiting Rotarians here
Indeed
today?
We do, President Dudley. We have two very distinguished visiting Rotarians with us here today. First, it is my pleasure to introduce from the Rotary Club of Truckee, a past president of the Rotary Club of Oakland. Please welcome John Gresley.
Yay!
And another equally distinguished Rotarian who knows the first Rotarian I introduced very well Also from the Rotary Club of Truckee, also a past president of the Rotary Club of Oakland, please welcome Gudrun Dybdal. And that does it for today, President Dudley.
Thank you, Ed. Are there any Rotarians with guests in the room today?
Yes, Ruth Stroup has a guest. Her name...
Sandeepa, just a moment. Let me get in the room here today, and then we'll...
Okay.
Just a moment, Sandeepa. CJ, you... No, we need the mic to get it online here. You can just hand it up.
Thank you, President Dudley. I didn't even see you. You got here up front. It is really a pleasure for me to introduce today as my guests Gary and Kathy Meyer. Gary will be speaking to us next week about the Academy Award, something he knows quite a bit about. So please welcome Gary and Kathy.
Do we have any other guests in the room today? Okay, Sandeepa, now it's your turn.
Okay, Ruth Stroup has invited Edie Zusman, Dr. Edie Zusman, who's an MD, MBA, Director, Spine Program and TBI Concussion Research, Piedmont Neuroscience Center, opening in Grand Avenue. Welcome, Eddie.
Anyone else out there, Sandeepa? Okay, Clive Worsley, could you come up here, please? Clive is going to do his 3-minute self-introduction. You know, we have like 25 people that need to do this. So if you haven't done it yet, we're going to get to you real quick. And Clive's going to give you an example of how. Thank you, Clive.
Good afternoon, folks. Thank you, President Dudley. It's my pleasure to be here today. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to introduce myself to you all. I am a new Rotarian as of January. I'm very grateful for the gracious and generous welcome that I have received from so very many members of this group. Too many to mention, but you know who you are, and I deeply thank you. My name is Clive Worsley. I use the he, him pronouns things. And I am the brand new Executive Director of the Junior Center of Art and Science. There on the shores of beautiful Lake Merritt, the jewel of Oakland, yes. And again, grateful to be here. I do want to wish you all a happy St. Patrick's Day. Though I am not Irish myself, I was born in Glasgow, Scotland in 1961 in Rotten Row Hospital, no joke, look it up. My family, my parents, my brothers, and I emigrated to Vancouver, British Columbia in 1965, and then to Oakland, California in 1976, where my father, who was an audio engineer, designed the public address system for Bay Area Rapid Transit, as well as the recording studios at Fantasy Records in Berkeley, the Record Lab in Sausalito, the Grateful Dead's Front Street Studios in Santa Fe, Prince's Paisley Park, and many, many others. Following my father's death and my mostly unsuccessful attempt at a career in rock and roll, I discovered acting at the ripe young age of 30. And then dedicated with almost the next 30 years of my life to work as an actor, director, and theater educator here in the Bay Area theater scene, which led to stints as the artistic director of the Town Hall Theater in Lafayette, and many, many years as the director of artistic learning at the California Shakespeare Theater. The most well-known of my achievements in that sphere is as the acting coach for a young actor, Zendaya Marie Stormer Coleman, the pride of Oakland. Go Zendaya. We expect to see a Golden Globe this year in the house from her, I think. What I learned from acting was that there was a passion and a calling for me that I lacked prior to that discovery. And the meat of that for me was discovering the grace of being involved in the empowerment and the betterment of our youth. which is what led me to my current position at the Junior Center of Art and Science. We have been delivering art and science educational engagements to Oakland youth since 1954. This is the moment where I give a personal shout out to my friend Isaac Koss-Reed, who was the first person to alert me to the news of a second fire at our facility in less than 1 calendar year. In March of 2021, unfortunately, thanks to a homeless encampment on the north side of the building, we suffered a fire that cost us about a third of the building on that side. And at the beginning of this month, Isaac gave me a call to let me know that we had suffered yet another fire, which took out the other third of the building. Suffice to say, we at the Junior Center of Art and Science are not down for the count. Those doors will not close on my watch. We will be back, and we will be back stronger than ever to continue the valuable work that we do of empowering Oakland youth. And I know that it is with the grace and the help of many of the members of this room and this organization that I will be able to continue that work with your support. Thank you ever so much.
So Clive, you joined us while we were online, so we didn't have a chance to give you your red badge. Let me do that. And also your Oakland Rotary pin. I ask you to wear that with pride. We also have a bag here. And I went through the entire bag when we inducted you. It's got the history of Oakland. It's got the directory of your 300 new best friends and the like. But we welcome you, and because of that, everybody please welcome Clive. So, okay, this is my costume, Clive. You do this as actor too, right? Okay. Some of you know that today is St. Patrick's Day, and we are a little lacking for Irish in our club right now. But we are, except for Jack McAvoy, who failed to lead us in the song. We remember Ed Rourke, who is still alive. I don't know if he's watching today online, but Ed used to always give us a poem and used to always lead us in Irish Eyes Are Smiling. And Ralph Sklar became Irish for a day today and is going to lead us.
Today, I am not Ralph Sklar. Today, I am. Not yet. Clive, I just want to let you know we voted and you are now a member of the meetings production committee. Very exclusive group. Good job. All right, are we ready? Are we ready?
Yes.
When Irish eyes are smiling, sure it's like a... Wait, we're way ahead. wait. Morning spring, in the lilt of Irish laughter, you can hear the angels sing. Wait. When Irish hearts are happy, all the world seems bright and gay. And when Irish eyes are smiling, sure they'll steal your heart away. Wait, I know this. There's a tear in your eye, and I'm wondering why, for it never should be there at all. With such power in your smile, sure a stone you'd beguile, so that never a teardrop should fall. With your sweet lilting laughter, like some fairy song, and your eyes twinkle bright as can be, you should laugh all the while, and all other times smile, so So now smile, a smile for me. When Irish eyes are smiling, sure it's like a morning spring. In the lilt of Irish laughter, you can hear the angels sing. When Irish hearts are happy, all the world seems bright and gay. And when Irish eyes are smiling, sure they'll steal your heart away. Wait, there may be more. No, that's it. All right. Hey.
Thank you, Ralph O'Sklar. So, a few announcements, things coming up. This Sunday is the Oakland Marathon, and some of you have signed up for the Oakland Marathon. We could still use a few more people. You do not have, at this point, you don't have to go online to do it. If you contact me, just email me and let me know. We could sure use maybe another 5 or 10 people. It's going to be from about 7 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. We'll try to do some shifts. We need most of the people from about 8 till about 11 or 12. But we could sure use a few more hands, and please get hold of me on that. And if you signed up, I encourage you to wear your yellow Oakland Rotary volunteer t-shirt. If you don't have one, again, get hold of me and I'll get you one. Jesse Schmidt, could you come up? We have a mixer coming up next week. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Thank you, President Dudley. Do we have a graphic going on? There we go. So the BDC is putting on a mixer, or margarita mixer, next Wednesday, the 23rd, at Nito's Backyard from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Our own Jane Williams of State Farm has agreed to be our sponsor for the night, and so appetizers are on her. There will be a cash bar. Nito's has really been awesome for us. Normally you have to do a huge guarantee, and they wipes the guarantee clean for us. They're going to give us a big space, so we hope to bring out a really good showing there. We already have 24 people as of this morning registered for the event, and we hope to get twice that. Please go to the Rotary calendar on the website, and you'll find the link to register right there if you haven't already. This event is open to anybody and everybody, so if you have someone who you've been looking forward to inviting to a Rotary event, this is perfect. Prospective members, friends, family, significant others, anybody and everybody is welcome. We just want to have a good time at Nito's, and that's about it. Hope to see you there.
Thank you, Jesse. Gabe, do you have that slide? Is there a slide on there, a blue slide with the events, with the announcements? Sandeepa, get it in the stack. I'll just go over these kind of quickly. On Saturday, coming in April, there is a lot to do to volunteer for. There will be a community service cleanup at the Lake Merritt Gardens. We've been trying to arrange this for some time. It's on Saturday, April 16th. And then that next week, there is a lot to do. Kinder Prep is doing their annual book packaging. That'll be at Johnstone Supply. The same day is the Enterprise Institute Leadership Academy. We're doing a one-day leadership academy this year, really preparing counselors for next year. We were just unable to do a full 3-day institute this year. That same weekend is the district convention. I'm going to say, all I can say is this. Several people went to the Jennifer Jones dinner 2 weeks ago. I can't tell you what it's like to be with 350 or 400 other Rotarians. There wasn't a lot of time to meet and greet other people, but it was just a great event. Last Sunday, for especially women, if you didn't go to the women's event in San Jose, you missed an opportunity to be with about 300, I'd say 250 women, about 50, 75 men, and it was a tremendous event for mixing, getting to know what other women in Rotary are like. They're going to do this every year. I strongly encourage it, but the district convention is coming up on the 22nd through the 24th. Registration is free. You have to pay for meals. You go onto the website to do that. I think all of us got an invitation in the mail a few days ago. So district convention, April 22nd through the 24th. Richard Flanders, district governor, will be here in a couple weeks, and he'll tell us more about it. That next week, Kinder Prep comes back with their field trip to the Oakland Zoo, and we need volunteers for that. So 2 weeks in there, and then we have the gala. And so there's lots to do. April's going to be a very busy month for the club. Okay, Pat Williams, would you tell us a little bit about ORE and the Cerrone Lena Scholarship? Okay, Lorna's up first. Lorna and Pat, this is the Lorna and Pat show.
Thank you very much, President Dudley and fellow Rotarians. Before I make my remarks, I just want to take a moment, a testament for those of you who ever think about sponsoring a meeting. I'd like to ring the bell in honor of Jesse Smith, who I've started training with as a result of his sponsoring a meeting a couple months ago. I'm a little sore today, but it's a good kind of sore. So today it's my pleasure to speak to you on behalf of the Oakland Rotary Endowment campaign. The words, take action, invest, build community, are why I joined Rotary in 1996. Iris Brody Lopez inspired me with the Hope Mentoring Program. Through my 25 plus years in Rotary, I've been honored to be a part of Oakland Rotary's investment in our local community. Everyone, especially youth, have the ability and desire to succeed. Our job is to provide the tools and resources to do so. As a Rotarian, each of you has the power to take action and provide these tools and resources by supporting the ORE campaign, volunteering as a tutor, mentoring, schlepping, packing, helping, and being someone who cares. We've done a lot of schlepping as Rotarians, let me tell you. In just the last 6 years, we have invested $1.16 million in our local community to purchase wellness backpacks for veterans, provide Oakland school teachers with much needed supplies, given unhoused individuals access to computers to apply for benefits, job training, and applications, and contributed towards the college tuition for many Oakland youth to attend college, as often the first in their family to do so. With that, I would like to take this moment to bring up Pat Williams.
This year, we recognize the 60th year of the club's Cerrone Lena Scholarship Program. During these 60 years, we've awarded over $1.7 million to promising Oakland students. We understand this makes our program, one of the largest continuously operating scholarship programs in the Bay Area. It began when member Al Cerrone left a bequest to start a club scholarship program. The first award was in 1962 to Harold Lincoln, who used the $500 per year to attend law school at UC Berkeley School of Law. Lincoln later became CEO of Nintendo of America and eventually the chairman and CEO of the Seattle Mariners. Here's a photo of Harold Lincoln at his retirement in 2016. As I continue, we'll scroll through the faces of some of our current scholarship recipients. The scholarship program expanded in 1978 when the estate of former member Nat Lena contributed additional funding to the scholarship program, and the fund was renamed the Cerrone Lena Scholarship Fund. Once the Cerrone and Lena funds were depleted, the the club's leaders decided to continue the scholarship program by allocating a portion of the annual ORE budget. As you know, the annual budget is funded in large part by the annual ORE campaign. Our program has evolved. Whereas it originally funded only 1 student per year, it now funds from 6 to 10 students. Whereas the first recipient was a law student, we now fund motivated Oakland public high school seniors who attend four-year college, most the first in their family to attend college. Whereas ORE used to cut the scholarship checks, we now partner with the nonprofit Oakland Promise, which administers the checks and provides additional student support and mentor training. One feature of our program that hasn't changed is that we pair every recipient with a Rotary member as a mentor, and the two stay in touch throughout the student's college experience. We believe this feature helps our scholarship recipients get through college. At last look, over 90% of our scholars graduate on time. This is an excellent graduation rate for a scholarship program. Please join me in celebrating our scholarship program's 60 years of success. With your ORE campaign donation, we'll continue to help Oakland students help achieve their academic dreams. Please donate generously to this year's ORE campaign.
So now you know why, and I will tell you, we lead by example. My sons would ask me, "Mom, why do you volunteer?" And I responded, "If I don't, who will?" At 34 and 36 years old, they're both leaders of their children's scout troops. We together can make a difference in the community we serve. I'm proud to be a sponsor of the Oakland Rotary Gala, which is coming up, as you know, on April 28th through Mowat, Mackey, and Anderson. I'm also proud to pledge $2,500 towards the Oakland Rotary campaign. I hope now you will take a moment. And I will say, I serve with my fellow ORE board members and my ORC board members. We've all 100% committed to support the campaign. So you see the thermometer. Our goal is $100,000. Please help us to get there. You have a pledge form on your table. If you're online, you can put in the chat that you would like to join me in supporting the ORE campaign this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorna and Pat. CJ, would you please introduce our speaker for the day?
Thank you, President Dudley. Well, many of us developed new interests to get through the pandemic, didn't we? 2 years ago, I started binging on American film noir. You know, dark streets, characters, crime, bad choices, and battered dames. Don't judge me. I just added up the number of films I watched. It currently stands at 92. Our guest today has absolutely no idea that he was my guide every step of the way. His definitive book, the video intros and outros he provides on his weekly Noir Alley series on Turner Classic Movies, also available on YouTube, I found, provided me with really a master class. When I found out recently that he's actually an East Bay resident and that he is moving his prestigious film Noir Festival to Oakland's Grand Lake Theater this month, after decades in San Francisco, well, I couldn't wait to invite him to speak to us. To quote a line from one of my favorite noirs, "I've met a lot of hard-boiled eggs in my time, but you're 20 minutes. Please welcome Eddie Muller, noircheologist.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I am happy to be here and to meet you all. President Dudley, thank you very much. Yes, and I enjoy hearing all the preceding speakers talk about the commitment to younger people in the community, because I have found that that is a very important part of what I do. And to give you a little background on how this has all developed, because I did volunteer work for many years for myself, but it's still volunteer work, right? Because back in the last century, I wrote a book called Dark City, The Lost World of Film Noir, that wasn't a bestseller or anything, but it certainly connected with some influential people. And I was invited to start programming in 1999 to program a film festival in Hollywood at the Egyptian Theater through what was called the American Cinematheque, still going in LA. And through this, I met a number of people who had made these films originally. And for those of you in the audience who may not know what CJ was referring to when she talked about film noir, I will very briefly give you a little primer on that. Film noir is what I call America's only organic, or Hollywood's only organic artistic movement. It largely happened in the 1940s through the early 1950s. It was something done by the artists. There was nothing dictating that these movies should be made, because as I'm sure you know, Hollywood money dictates what happens in Hollywood, not the art, not the work of the storytellers. But amazingly, some perfect storm happened, and there was a combination of a specific style of American storytelling and American vernacular language. CJ used some of it in her introduction, that became extremely popular at the time. And this was combined with the visual sensibility of a lot of filmmakers who had come to Hollywood from Europe because they did not want to work either in Germany under the Nazis or in occupied France or any of that. So they emigrated to Hollywood. And when these two elements combined, this visual sensibility with this particularly American style of storytelling, that's when film noir was created. And I sort of call it the anti-myth of American life, right? I mean, Hollywood tells you that everything's gonna be okay and we're all gonna live happily ever after, and film noir is the counterbalance to that, saying, grow up, guess again, nothing is gonna work out the way you anticipate, right? And I guess when you have lived through 2 world wars, as these artists had done, they felt that was an attitude that needed to be expressed. And it's sort of when Hollywood grew up. They wanted to write more adult stories. They wanted stories to not necessarily end happily ever after. Now, the irony in all of this is that since the end of the last century, I have been presenting these festivals of film noir. Today, astoundingly, we have traveled so far from that era that people watch these movies that were once considered warning flares about how bad it can be if you don't pay attention. Now people watch these films as comfort food. It reminds them of a better time. But the festival that I'm about to present at the Grand Lake 1 week from today, it's the 19th version of this festival that I've done here in the Bay Area. We used to call it the annual San Francisco Festival of Film Noir. It's no longer that, because it's now the Bay Area Festival of Film Noir. The theme of this festival is they tried to warn us, because every film in the festival, even though the movies were made in the 1940s and the 1950s, all of them are about themes that are still with us to this day. And were made by what I would consider to be somewhat progressive artists at that time, who were basically warning about racial injustice, police brutality, sexual assault, immoral politicians run amok, All of these things were in the films made at that time and were, as I say, kind of like warning shots for the public. And it's kind of fascinating to see that these films still remain very, very timely. And one of the things that, when I talk about volunteer service, when I started presenting these festivals, I will confess it was shameless opportunism because I had written this book and I was invited to program a festival thinking this will help book sales tremendously. But once I was invited by a dear friend of mine, Anita Manga, who was the programmer back in 1999 at the Castro Theater in San Francisco. Once Anita invited me to program a 2-week festival at that venue, it opened up a whole other world to me. And all of this has become not just a way to sell books, it has now become my new life and my new career. We now do 8 of these festivals around the country every year. I get requests to do more of them literally every week. There's another city that wants to add a festival. And eventually, Turner Classic Movies invited me to become one of its permanent hosts, specifically because of this show I do every weekend. Saturday nights at 9 p.m., Sunday mornings at 7 a.m., for those of you who have DVRs, because who the hell will get up at 7 a.m. on Sunday morning to watch a movie? But it's just something that I never anticipated. So it's a very interesting example of if you do what you love to do and you're passionate and enthusiastic about it, kind of amazing things can happen, because this was never my plan. And it's funny that people say, how did you orchestrate that? How did you make that happen? Because my colleague, it's interesting, my colleague at Turner Classic Movies, Alicia Malone, those of you who watch TCM, you must know who I'm talking about. Alicia is from Australia, and she's significantly younger than me, but she came to America with $500 in her pocket and a journal, and she wrote in the journal on the plane coming to America her goals for what could possibly happen once she got here. And one of the things on her short list was host TCM. And amazingly, 10 years later, she is now a host on TCM, and she has made this happen through nothing more than her tremendously winning personality, but that she has incredible passion and enthusiasm for what she does. I cannot stress enough how vital that is in everything that you do. And also just connecting with, like Gary, who's sitting right here, Gary Meyer, whom I've known for years and years. Gary has become a very important collaborator in all of this. That guy was exhibiting movies before I ever thought of the idea of it. And back when we were in San Francisco, Gary was essential to the success of the Noir City Film Festival by providing a new home for it when I had to leave the Castro for a while. Thanks again, Gary. That was nice of you. So anyway, this is what I do, and it's fascinating to me. And I do want to just say briefly, I'm very happy to be moving the festival to Oakland because I really love Oakland. And this is coming from a guy who's a native San Franciscan. I mean, I was born at St. Luke's Hospital in San Francisco and grew up going to public school in the city. My dad worked for the San Francisco Examiner when it was the flagship of the Hearst Empire. I just never imagined that I'd be living on this side of the bay, but I have been for almost 30 years now. And quite honestly, I was happy to move the festival because I felt like Oakland needed something, a little shot in the arm, because as a guy who's been here 30 years, I hated, seeing the Raiders move. I hated seeing the Warriors move to the other side of the bay. And I just said, it's time it went the other way. That somebody who's synonymous with San Francisco moved to Oakland. And I do find the town to be very, very welcoming in a way that off the record, I know, like he's talking to a camera and everything, but I have a little bit of a hard time recognizing the San Francisco that I grew up in anymore, whereas I don't have any problem with Oakland. I mean, I feel like I can walk in any bar or restaurant in Oakland and I feel very welcome and at home, much more so these days than in San Francisco. I probably shouldn't be saying stuff like this, but it's actually very, very true. So I'm very enthusiastic about starting this up at the Grand Lake Theater. And just a funny little bit of business is when during COVID, we couldn't do somebody better get that. During COVID, I record this show for Turner Classic Movies and we normally do it in Atlanta. So I would be flying to Atlanta every so often to record the show. But during COVID, that was impossible. And so we all had to record our TV shows from home. And that started to become really difficult because my damn neighbor decided that COVID was the perfect time to start remodeling his house. And so the sound of all these workmen every day made it absolutely impossible for me to record the show. So finally I had to go across the street and say, Alan, enough. I can't record my show. And he said, well, why don't you just do your show at my theater since I can't have people in it? Because yes, my neighbor is Alan Michon, who runs the Grand Lake Theater. So he actually allowed me to shoot my show in his theater. And it was during that process that I realized, I should just do the festival here. I mean, this is like a perfect home for it. And so that's what we're doing. And I hope all of you will come to the show starting next Thursday. And also I want to thank my buddy Patrick Marks from Green Arcade Bookstore, who is here selling the new edition of that book I told you about, Dark City, The Lost World of Film Noir. This is the great thing about getting your own TV show, is that 20 years later, you can do the edition of the book that you wanted to do 20 years earlier when they said, that's too many pages and too many photographs, and you can't do all of that. And then 20 years later, when you have your own television show, you can put all that stuff back in, and they pay for even more expensive paper, and they do a beautiful job. And so now it's the book that I always wanted it to be. And Patrick has those here, and I'm happy to sign one for anybody. And I'm very happy to take, do we have time for some questions? I'm happy to take any questions that anybody has about damn near anything. Yes, sir. Or do we need a moderator for this?
Here, Robert Kidd.
Eddie, thanks for coming here. Thanks for moving back to Oakland or coming to Oakland. It seems to me of the film noir I've seen and the film and the books that they were based on, or the storylines, is that women don't come across real powerful or real well. They usually tend up being the victims of whatever is going on. And they're women with tough lives. And so I'm wondering, where does that fit into current culture about strong women, women assuming leadership roles? Were there any such women involved in the film noir film period? And how do you make that transition?
Okay, thank you for that excellent question. Because you can see for yourself when you come to the show starting next Thursday. No, actually, that is a really interesting question, and one that I have dealt with for years, because I will dare to suggest that that notion largely comes from poor scholarship. Because a lot of the books that existed years ago about film noir were written largely by men. Those books, right? And I guarantee you there were many, many more women working in Hollywood than those men who wrote those books realized. Also, there are men still to this day who will argue with me that it is not really a film noir unless there is a femme fatale in the story, and that the purpose of the femme fatale is to destroy the man. That's the common conventional wisdom about these things, which I say, watch the films a little more closely, because I guarantee you, and trust me, I have seen a lot of these movies, every single one of those films has another female character in it who is the answer to the man's problems. But he ignores that woman in favor of the bad woman. So these are kind of moral tales, because I will tell you that in Hollywood movies of the 40s and 50s, there is no genre in which women were presented as more self-possessed and self-reliant than film noir. There are fashion designers, book editors, all kinds of female characters with what the new popular term is agency. They have agency, and they are the solution to the man's dilemma. I'm just to give you an example, there's a movie called Angel Face with Robert Mitchum, and Jane Greer plays the heiress who destroys him. But he's already in a relationship with Mona Freeman, who plays a nurse. And he's an ambulance driver, and they have like the perfect relationship. But then he falls for the heiress, who is demented and evil. Now, there's a moral in this story that I don't think I have to strain to get across, right? Bob, you would have been better off with the nurse. That was the point of the story, right? And you see this time and again in these films, and it requires a little bit of revision, I think, in the scholarship, which I have certainly tried to do in my book, pointing out like how many women actually wrote the novels to begin with. Because people will say that, you know, oh, this is the world of Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler and James M. Cain were the writers that wrote the books that these movies are based on. They somehow conveniently forget to mention Patricia Highsmith, who is probably the greatest noir writer of all time, or Dorothy B. Hughes, who wrote probably more great books than Raymond Chandler did, but they somehow conveniently leave these women out of the discourse. And this is the thing that sort of needs to be corrected. And also there were female producers in Hollywood. Joan Harrison, who was Alfred Hitchcock's protege, was virtually unknown for years. It was not until last year that there was actually a biography of Joan Harrison, who produced many of the most important noir films and produced Alfred Hitchcock's television show, which everybody knows, that show was produced by a woman. And these are things that are just starting to get into public knowledge at this point. Why they were ignored, that's a good question to ask, but I don't blame the films, because they actually were addressing these situations, this dilemma at the time. It was actually being addressed.
Rob Barth.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Eddie. A comment and a question. There are a lot of, at your public libraries, I happen to live in San Francisco. San Francisco Public Library has a tremendously large collection of film noirs that you can get, obscure ones you've never heard of. So Oakland is the same way. So it's a good source for finding these movies. Then the question to you is, there's a number of subgenres in film noir, cop procedural, gangster, prison, whatever. One of them is boxing, okay?
Yes.
And I know so there are a number of very good film noirs about boxing, The Setup, Champion, Body and Soul, and I like them all. Do you have any favorite among those?
Yes, The Setup is my favorite of the noir boxing films, which I just highly recommend. But yes, just to add one little thing to what you're saying, yes, the subgenres within film noir are endless, And because I call it an artistic movement, they're mostly crime movies, because back in the day when these were made, no one called them film noir. That was a critical term that got applied post facto. When they were made in Hollywood, they were called either crime thrillers or murder dramas. That was primarily what they were. And I always found it interesting after studying a lot of what were called exhibitors' manuals. Gary knows what I'm talking about with exhibitor manuals that went out to the theater owners to tell them what was in the pipeline coming from Hollywood. I learned that there was a distinction between a crime thriller and a murder drama that was fascinating. Murder dramas were crime movies about amateurs. That's like Double Indemnity and The Postman Always Rings Twice, where it's like spouses bumping each other off. Those are murder dramas, and crime thrillers are about professional criminals. That's like The Asphalt Jungle, like we're gonna rob a jewelry exchange, or we're gonna rob this bank, or so. If it's cops and robbers and professional criminals, that's a crime thriller. If it's a murder drama, then you know they're amateurs trying to commit crimes.
Stephanie Kazenta.
Hi. So I recently had the opportunity to see the remake of Nightmare Alley. I've never been able to find the black and white version, the original with Jerome Power. How do you think they compare?
They're both good. That's my comparison. I love the original film, and it will always be number one in my heart. If everybody heard that, this was about Nightmare Alley, which was a classic noir film from 1947 that was just remade by Guillermo del Toro with Bradley Cooper in playing the part that Tyrone Power played in the original. The major difference between the two, besides the color, although they tried so hard to figure out a way to market the new one that they even released it for a while in black and white, hoping that it would appeal to the hardcore cinephiles. But the biggest difference between the two is that the new one has the real ending. It has the ending that was in the novel, because it's quite a powerful novel that it's based on. And they kind of stuck a Hollywood ending on the original one that isn't quite so bleak, but the new version has the full-on hardcore ending that was intended.
Allison Bliss.
Hi, thank you so much. This is fascinating. I think I learned more from you than I did in probably 2 semesters of college when I was studying film. So thank you very much.
That's my job, ma'am.
I loved your explanation about the femme fatale. I always thought that they were sort of the feminists of their time because they were really brave and brazen.
They were feminists if you think that the ultimate end of feminism is killing the guy. Yeah, they were feminists, yeah.
Well, they just spoke their mind, right?
But I will, I'm sorry, please, you have a question.
So my question is, talk about the transition from German expressionism to film noir, the production value of that. I'm
Sure.
just curious.
So Alice knows that a lot of people credit another artistic movement, German expressionism, with having a huge influence on film noir. Okay, so expressionism really developed in the silent era, and it was a belief that what you are seeing visually, what is presented visually, can be an actual physical manifestation of the internal lives of the characters. That's what expressionism is. And this meant that the art direction, the cinematography, it had no, it did not have to be realistic. It could be more expressive. So you got very stark black and white photography. The sets may not be constructed evenly because they're showing a distorted view of things. Movies like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, for example, is a prime example of expressionism. So there was a whole generation of filmmakers who came of age in Europe, and you realize that once upon a time Berlin was actually the film capital of the world, not Hollywood, in the earliest days of cinema. and an incredible amount of talented filmmakers came through the studios at Berlin. One in particular called UFA, that just dominated international filmmaking. And even filmmakers who weren't German ended up there, like Alfred Hitchcock made movies in Berlin in the earliest days. So these filmmakers developed this style that was very theatrical. It did not have anything to do with realism. And when they emigrated to the United States, either they personally emigrated to the United States or just the influence of their filmmaking infected Hollywood. When it was combined with these crime stories, that's sort of where noir happened. And the interesting confluence is that very European sensibility. And there was a pessimism that seeped into it just because these were artists who had lived in a place where there were 2 world wars, right? Well, one that happened that was supposed to end all the wars, and then a lot of these filmmakers came to Hollywood, and then another world war happened. So they had a very pessimistic attitude. And the writers, though, were largely American. And I cannot overstate the importance of the language, because there is something about the American language, the vernacular speech that was popularized in these crime stories, where you got all the slang and the wisecracking and all of that. That is all part and parcel of this, and a main reason why it stays so popular. Because people in film noir are far wittier than we can be. And they do it so fast, and their comebacks are so, you're thinking, why can't I think of stuff like that fast? So that's a huge part of it. When you get, Bogart and Dick Powell and Robert Mitchum cracking wise, it's a huge part of the genre's popularity.
Sandeepa, we have time for one question. Sandeepa, do you have one out there in Zoom?
Yes, we have. And this question is from Steve Lowe. Has anyone ever slipped you a Mickey in a waterfront drive?
The answer is yes, but it was not in a waterfront dive. I was slipped a Mickey in a bar in Salzburg, Austria. I think I was with a buddy of mine who was a little too loudmouthed. He was a little too much of a loudmouthed American. And we got dosed in this bar and woke up someplace else.
Thank you, Eddie. You're very welcome. Eddie, this year we're highlighting the Rotary area of focus, the environment. In your honor, we're making a donation to the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, SRAG, toward their focus on biodiversity, sustainable living, pollution, the climate, food systems, and a circular economy. Thank you so much for joining us for Rotary Civic Thursday. So do I have any other bell ringers today? Did you have any out there, Sandeepa?
We do not have any bell ringers here.
We really rang up the place last week, and maybe we'll do it next week. CJ, you said a little bit. Would you like to say another word about next week's program?
Can I tell you how happy this film major is right now and for next week? So next week, as you've already heard, we'll focus once again on film, bringing back our favorite resident expert, Gary Meyer, founder of Landmark Films and co-director of the prestigious Telluride Film Festival for many years. He will discuss the upcoming Oscars. He thinks it's a whole new world we're going to see. He'll also give us a glimpse of the glam new Academy Museum in Los Angeles. So be prepared to talk about your favorite Oscar picks to win and hear what he has to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you, Liz Ortega, for the thought for the day. Thank you, past district governor and past President Ed Jellen. Clive Worsley, welcome and good to have you. I think I made a mistake. You now have your blue badge. You said you're 3. Told you it was a red badge. You got it a lot faster than Keith Uriarte did, who had to beg for a year. Okay, Ralph Sklar, thanks so much for Ralph Osklar. Jesse Schmidt, thank you. Lorna Padilla Marcus and Pat William for sharing about ORE and the Sorority Lena. CJ, thank you for taking over the meeting today. And Eddie, thanks so much for being our guest speaker today. The AV team, Gabe brought... I tell you, people are storming in to be on this committee, but as you look at it, it's a little bit white and it's a little bit male, and we're very glad to have diversity on AV, so think about joining the AV team. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Oh, Sandeepa. Oh, Sandeepa, okay. Not seen, not there. Sandeepa, get your face up here. Highlight yourself. Okay. Shy and modest. Not say, there we go. This is not a shy and modest woman, and she'll kill any of us. Last thing. I'm not going to turn my light on, but for St. Patrick's Day, if anybody wants to join me at 5:30, it's Shalante tonight, 2nd and Broadway. I'll buy you an Irish coffee. I'll be there at 5:30. Come on down. This is not on the calendar, but it's my thing. Okay, we're over time. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Remember, we are Rotary, serve to change lives. Don't keep Rotary a secret, and this meeting is adjourned.